Hello and welcome back to the Mercedes-Benz Virtual GP 2019 season. We're in the land of the rising sun for our second doubleheader of the season. We've got all of the drivers in the studio and we've split them into their respective divisions, and they'll be battling it out around the Okayama circuit for our enjoyment today. My name is Justin Sutton, and joining me as usual, it's Chris Buxton.
Now, this should be a magnificent race to see off these mighty DTM cars in a grand style. Let's have a look at where our VGP2 standings currently sit. Kovacic, of course, running away with it now with a very comfortable 30-point lead, but as we are accustomed to seeing, second right the way down to 7th, really closely fought, to 16 points separating that section of the standings. And the teams, well, not so comfortable for them, but still a lot to be fighting for. Acer with a narrow lead, Benzino and Logitech still fighting it out for that second spot, and Predator and RPS then bringing up the rear, but only just, you know, for 4th and 5th.
Taking a look at this sort of gem of a circuit, 13 corners, 3.7 kilometers. It has high speeds, some high-speed turns, and some low-speed turns as well. It's 30 degrees centigrade in the air temperature. Driver of the day for VGP2 last time out was Simon Kovacic in the Logitech car.
Was indeed, and this is where the qualifying currently sits us for the VGP2 race. Pavel Reigl barely nudging out Kovacic, so that's going to be an interesting matchup there. And then Prachada in 3rd, a couple of tenths back, and then again very closely fought for the remainder of the grid. Now, it's interesting to see Kovacic with some battling going on there for Pavel Reigl, so this is going to be good.
Yeah, very much looking forward to this one. This car has been fantastic so far in all of the races that we've seen with it. And here at Okayama, we're expecting another thriller as we prepare to go racing. And they are away. Lots of wheel spin. Again, no traction control or anything like that in these early 90s DTM cars, the Mercedes-Benz 190E. And Pavel Reigl in the Acer car does maintain that lead into turn 1. The Thrustmaster car going around the outside of Kovacic, though. That's Pichata. He's going to get the inside line now for turn 2 as they go into Williams corner, but it looks like Kovacic doing a great job of maintaining that speed coming out of the corner, and they're still going to be side by side. I think Kovacic might have just got him as they went out of the shot there, but there's some more battling going on. Actually, the Forza car and Benzina cars side by side, and indeed Kovacic does hold on as they make their way through turn 4 for the first time. A bit of contact already being made there. Corny making contact with the back of the RPS car. He's got the Legion car alongside him now as they make their long run down towards this hairpin, which we expect to see a lot of overtakes at, Chris.
Yeah, it was great seeing 3 wide at Atwood Curve there. That was absolutely fantastic. Here we go then into the hairpin for the first time in anger. Big on the brakes. Remember, these cars do not have driver aids, so if they hit the brake pedal too hard, they will be going off into the dust quite dramatically. Oops! And that's Corny really introducing himself to the back of the RPS car there. So he needs to be careful he doesn't do that too often. But as Prachada in the Thrustmaster car, keeping his eyes very much on Kovacic's tail. But Reigl has had a cracking start and he's really stretching his legs up front. Here's Corny in the sport car that's looking at the back of the RPS car as they now come to finish their first lap, or coming through the final few turns to do so. They've got to be so careful. These cars, as we've seen many times in this series, it's very easy to unbalance. They're perfectly on cue there, Mr. Corny, well done. It's easy to unbalance this car, and this track is quite a technical one by comparison to some others we've seen. So that's something that our drivers really have to bear in mind. The walls really aren't that far away from the track either.
Yeah, and right past the edge of the circuit is grass, gravel, you know, all those sorts of things that are going to catch a driver out. So we've seen, though, some people dipping wheels in the grass and stuff like that. I mean, you got to be really brave with that sort of stuff, though, and really know the circuit and feel confident in yourself and in the car and the setup you have. So, yeah, if they do make any sort of mistake, the grass, the gravel, it's all right there. And as Chris said, the barriers are not that far away either. Look at that. It's just maybe a meter and a half, 2 meters between these guys and that barrier as they make their way down at well over 200 kph into the hairpin. Are we going to see a move from the Smarty car of Buszek into the hairpin? Oh, that's a very late maneuver. Contact made with the Benzina car. He is going to move up ahead, but he's going to have the outside line heading into these 2 left-handers at 6 and 7, and I think he may have even backed out of that, realizing his mistake there. So the Benzina car of Lishka does stay ahead for the meantime. And this is really exciting stuff already. Of course, a shorter race here today. We've only got 17 minutes plus 1 lap still remaining. Corny in 8th position at the moment, as he's got a great view of the RPS car and Smarty car going side by side with one another now through the right-hander of turn 9. That's Hobbs, and then it's a bit of a short dash down to the penultimate corner, turn 10. Oh, and Corny with an opportunistic move there sneaks up the inside on the RPS car, moves himself up into 7th position. A solid move there, Chris.
Yeah, that caught Prohaska very much by surprise. I think he kind of thought he was just going to hold the racing line, and that was the end of that. But no, he was very much sprung upon there, as again he looks set to lose another position. So after a fairly decent start from Corny, oh wow, you're running out of space there. Prohaska really putting the squeeze on him. Yeah, it seems to have gone backwards very quickly, but still enough time for them to do something about it. Again, lovely inside maneuver from the RPS car. Can he hold it for the next turn as they hit? Oh, very well defended from Corny there. He's got plenty of fight left in him. There is Prohaska in the RPS car. He's got Hertnecki in the Avaskar Darelli behind. And then Vanashek and Jelenik in the Legion and Predators, respectively. Lovely pack of cars. It's, the field's almost split in half, essentially. Half the field in this pack and the rest, well, there you go, in the rest of the shot there, with the exception probably of Pavel Reigl, that's given himself, 1.5 seconds-ish up front. Nothing to worry about. Kovacic has... Whoa. Oh, never mind. That's Corny that's gone off his... and then punched in the face by Hertnecki in the Avaskar. Oh dear, it is not going well for Corny.
No, not at all. Yeah, I think he just missed his braking point. I think that might have been the first time where he was going into that hairpin at turn 5 without having a car alongside him. And it looks like he's going to lose another position to Jelenik in the Predator, who's got the inside line now for this turn 8 hairpin, this very technical sort of final sector. And it looks like he's just about going to get ahead of Corny through that corner as we move a little bit further up the field, on board with Pichata in the Thrustmaster car, looking backwards at Kujela in the Forza car. And as Chris said, this is sort of where the split is just behind this trio of cars, with Bushek with about a 1.4 second gap, and actually a 2 second gap now down to Yaroslav Prohaska in the RPS car in 7th position, but making their way through this first corner about just over 100 kph through that corner, a minimum apex speed. And there is your current race leader in that lovely Acer livery that we love to talk about so much. This will be the 9th time, I believe, that we've talked about that livery and how beautiful it is. But yeah, he is holding on to that lead, and you have to say, looking very strong here, Chris. He's just extending that gap ever so slightly to Kovacic.
Yeah, we used to see the Logitech car up front. As Corny trying to avoid the wooden spoon, the last place sprinter. Also, something else to bear in mind, Kovacic, oddly, is on the hard tyres as well. So
well spotted. So
we've literally got all 3 compounds of tyres represented, the soft, medium, the hard. I'm very surprised to be seeing the hard tyres run. As Corny does a little bit of lawn mowing. Oh, does a big move into the hairpin. But he's got it right, though. He's timed that one perfectly well. He committed to that in very good time to let Jelenik know I'm coming in, and he's going to be forced to the outside. For Revolver, now into Piper, and does indeed get the move done again. They haven't fallen too far off the back of Hertnecki in the Avaskar, so they can still close that one down. Now looking at Pichata in the Thrustmaster car, being followed very closely by the Forza car of Kujela. There is the ever-loved Acer livery of Reigl leading the way. It's not a huge gap, but it's enough that means he can focus purely on hitting his break points and getting the apexes right, unlike pretty much everybody else in the field has got, so with the exception of probably Bushek is the only one that's got any kind of breathing space fore and aft. And Kovacic, yeah, it's unusual to see him not on the top spot. I mean, take last time we were talking over in Donington, he was mixing it up, he was making the VGP1s work for it. So it's great to see Kovacic have to work for it, and fair play to Reigl for maximising his opportunities. Did a great start and run away with it.
Yeah, one of the stars of the season, you have to say, Kovacic. He's really been on another level, especially in the VGP2 category. But as you said, mixing it up even with the VGP1 guys, and possibly proving himself for a VGP1 seat for the 2020 season. Who knows? But at the moment, we're having a look at Prohaska. He's worried about Vanashek behind. Vanashek, of course, though, has to worry about Hertnecki behind. There is about a 3-second gap down to Corny, who still has Jelenik. You can see him just coming into the shot there in the background. Still has Jelenik for company. So it seems that Jelinek, actually, who we've seen struggle in a couple of races recently, we've mentioned the Predator cars bookending the field at multiple points recently, being in first and last, but he is in last at the moment, but he's also doing a fantastic job of keeping up with Corny, who we know is an extremely quick driver, and he's been past him for more than a lap now, and you can see Corny making another mistake there. There's that grass I was talking about. That's going to completely ruin his apex for the final corner, which could put Jelinek onto the back of him as they make their way down into turn 1. But looking at the Benzina car, taking a very different line, a very wide line compared to the Forza car of Kujela up ahead. I have to point out, Chris, we've seen a couple of side-by-side moments through this turn 2 at Williams, and I believe at both times the car ahead actually defended around the outside. So the car at the outside of turn 2 seems to be able to carry that that little bit more speed, and that's sort of a medium length run down to turn 3, which is pretty high speed. And of course, if you're around the outside at turn 2, that gives you the inside line into turn 3. So we're seeing some very interesting stuff from these guys for what is the final race in the Mercedes-Benz 190E for the VGP2 division. Of course, we do still have, or not the final race, but the final races, I should say. And of course, we will have the VGP1 races taking place not that long after this either. And really looking forward to these, and not disappointing at all. Getting very close between Kujela and Lishka once again. Oh, just bouncing over the inside curve there was Kujela, and I think that's going to give Lishka a little bit of a run. I think the Forza driver is going to defend the inside line, leaves just enough space. I mean, just enough space around the outside there. And can the Benzina car sneak up the inside into turn 9 here? He's looking for the gap, and actually Kujela gives him the room. He leaves him the room through that corner. Great racing between the pair of them. And there is that Legion car coming under attack from Hurtnecki. This is what I mentioned earlier on, and I think if he doesn't make the overtake here on Prohaska soon, Chris, he's going to really have to worry about Hurtnecki. I mean, he already does.
Well, indeed, it's that Avascar has been occupying the mirrors of the Legion car all race long so far. Also, the gap between Prohaska and Buchek is getting bigger and bigger and bigger because the RPS car's having to defend so hard from Vanashek. So Prohaska doing it well. In fairness, all the drivers are very, very good. They're doing a great job. We haven't seen anybody fly completely off the road with the exception of the one mistake we saw from Corny, but I mean, he didn't bang into the wall and he hasn't repeated the mistake since. So, and this is not an easy track either. It's the camera angles don't do it justice. It's surprisingly bumpy, and the elevation change, the undulation change really is taxing. And wow, that is wide from Prohaska. That's quite a long way out, but that's the nature of this particular circuit. You can get traction out there. There's not one set line to take pretty much any of these corners, really. You know, if you maybe go a bit wide, you can. If you get the hammer down properly, you can, you know, get a decent drive out. Here's Jelinek again, trying to overtake Corny in the sport car. Again, he's a little cautious coming into the next long right-hander, but again, well, it's not surprising these cars. That's a place where it's very, very likely to lock up. You're streaming on from outward curve and then heavy on the brakes into the hairpin. So I can understand caution being exercised there. There again is Vanashek in the Legion car trying to make his way past Prohaska. But once again, the RPS car doing a stellar job in fending off a lot of pressure behind.
Yeah, Vanashek is going to get another opportunity into turn 1. Turn 5 is the more likely overtaking location. However, turn 1 is also lots of different lines you can take through turn 1. Even though you don't hit the brakes quite as hard as you do into turn 5, it is still a good overtaking location. He's several car lengths back, though, is Vanashek, as they get into turn 1, so he's not going to be able to make anything happen here. It seems like he's much quicker compared to Prohaska, sort of in Sector 3, because, I mean, you can see the gap that they have at the moment. Maybe, hopefully we'll stick with this, or we'll rejoin this battle as they get to the end of the lap, but you can see the size of the gap that they have as they start the lap, but as they get towards the end of the lap, really that's when we start seeing the Legion cars start to close up as they make their way down into Atwood, turn 4 once again. And again, this is another corner, very similar to turn 1 actually, where you can take a variety of lines, as Chris was saying. So even if you do miss your apex, it's not going to hurt you terribly, because again, there's different lines that you can take through there. It's not terribly damaging to your race, to your lap time, or anything like that. Into the hairpin once again. Still a few car lengths back, though. Not managing to make up any time was Vanashek through the first handful of corners or so. through that lap. Moving back on board with Pichata, though. He is still just about keeping up with Kovacic. Pichata on the mediums, as is Rigel, who's currently leading the race. Kovacic again on the hard compound tires. There's only 7 minutes plus 1 lap still remaining, so Kovacic hasn't really made any sort of inroads on Rigel. He's been losing, you know, a tenth here and there. It's not massively that he's losing out compared to Rigel, and maybe he knows something that we don't know about the tires sort of falling off towards the end of this race. For all we know, it could have just been a mistake going onto the hards, so we can only speculate as far as that kind of stuff is concerned. But Pichata, again, looking a little bit too far back. He's almost a full second adrift of that Logitech car, as they and you can actually see how much they're concentrating. You can see Pichata fighting that wheel. Yeah, you can see. I mean, Chris, you really hit the nail on the head here. You don't see it from the onboards, but they are really having to fight the car here.
Yeah, the shot we've just seen of the drivers really having to saw the wheel really highlights how much they're having to work. You could be forgiven for thinking, oh, they're having a good old time. Well, they probably are having a good old time. But, you know, there's an easy drive. They're just wandering around. They're just doing it quite quickly. No, they are working every single apex, every braking point, every turn in. And we've seen it a few times from this shot. Perfect timing. Thank you, cameraman. Where you start to see the car you're riding, you'll hear the right rev suddenly spike. Oh, Bushek, nicely done. Can he slow it down? Yes, he can. Nice effort there from the Smarty car. Oh, and the Forza car doing the same thing on the thrust. Oh, and the Benzina car as well. Not quite. He got a little bit boxed in there, did the Benzina car. Had nowhere to go, did Mr. Lishka. Okay, coming back to what I was originally saying. Oh, no, never mind. Kushela having another go. Oh, that's very deep. Can the Benzina car recover that one? That was very, very deep coming into the Hobbs turn. Just about. That was that was into Redmond, and then Hobbs, because Hobbs is so close to that turn 8, you got away with that one a little bit. But you can actually see, you'll hear the rev spike, especially if they try and power on the rumble strip. See if they can. Kujela kind of did it at the end of that particular turn, but sometimes you'll hear the rev spike. That's where the tyres just completely lost traction. That's when you'll see them really work. Oh my goodness, Kujala, that was a little deep. Yeah, that was a bit of a clinching moment. I thought you were going to go off and do some lawn mowing there, but that was brave. But fair play for keeping that one under control. But a great battle between Kujala and Bushek. That is allowing the Smarty car to kind of run off a little bit. So Lishka and Kujela have a great old scrap, but it does look like here's the Benzina car beginning to reel in the Smarty car. Then it did Bushek make a bit of a mistake there at Atwood that's allowed the Benzina car to get straight in his case.
I think, I think you may have hit the nail on the head there. I think you might be exactly right about that. But an A for effort to Kujela for that attempt. And he nearly made it work too. That was. I apologize for my gasp and my exclamations, but oh my goodness! It looked like for a second there he was actually going to pull that off, which was would have been truly. I mean, it was incredible that he didn't crash there. Oh man, Pichata just dipping that rear right wheel into the grass. You can see the back end just stepping out a little bit as a result of that, getting into the grass under the braking for Redmond turn 8 there. But yeah, through this technical final section, he's keeping it nice and clean. You can see he's running it right up to the edge of the circuit, though. So this is inch-perfect precision here from Pichata, who is currently running a fantastic race in 3rd position, it's worth mentioning. And I mean, these 3 guys have really separated themselves from the rest of the field. About a 5 to 6 second gap down to Bushek in that Smarty car, who we mentioned earlier was starting to pull away after Lishka and Kujela started battling. But it looks like that gap might be coming down. Kujela might actually be resuming that battle and pulling away from Prohaska. So, but yeah, Pichata doing a fantastic job, looking like he's on for a solid podium here today in the first race in the VGP2 category here at Okayama. Less than 3 minutes remaining plus 1 lap. And it is about a minute 40 laps, so possibly 3 laps that we're going to see still to go in this race. But yeah, we haven't seen a huge change between Kovacic and Rigel. That gap has pretty much stabilized now. It was slowly increasing to about the 2-second range that we saw. but that has since come down as we saw Pachada just taking a moment down that long straight just to scratch an itch or something along those lines. But it's nice when you have a straight long enough that you can do that. Here we go, Jelinek. Oh, that's extremely wide for Corny. We've been saying that there's multiple lines through turn 4. That's not one of them. That's definitely not one of the available lines for Corny, and that's going to put Jelinek right up to the back of him. He's picked up a little bit of a slipstream. He's got the inside line, but of course, you go around the outside here at the turn 5 hairpin, you'll get the inside line for both Revolver and Piper, but actually it looks like Jelinek is just going to squeeze his way through up into P10, so certainly not the best race today for Corny, I have to say, or it's a really, really good race today for Jelinek, or it might be a mixture of the two.
Mixture of the two, yeah. You actually heard Jelinek bounce off the top of the rev limiter. He essentially ran out of gears coming towards the end of that back straight. So that could be something that is maybe holding him up a little bit. If he's got shorter gears, that'll help him power out the corners a little bit quicker than possibly some. But yeah, the shorter gears may not necessarily be helping him too much suddenly along that back straight. Here is our race leader, pole man, and he had the fastest lap earlier on in the race. He looks set to maintain those particular records, as I think the checker flag is likely to fall before he beats the flag, or if he's going to beat it, he'll barely beat it, so he could be on the penultimate lap this time around. The bright green Acer car still leading the way fairly comfortably, 2 seconds over that man there, Kovacic. Maybe Kovacic fitted the hard tyres just to give someone else a chance, because he has been so strong in this series that and what a great chance is given to Raigel, and Raigel's really seized that opportunity. Here is Liska again in the Benzina car with a bit of breathing space between himself and Kujela in the Forza car behind. But it does seem that Liska has closed in the gap a bit on Bushek since we last looked at them. And actually, Prohaska is not too far. There he is in the RPS car. It's not too far behind now. So maybe Prohaska is beginning to pick up the pace a bit, because that gap was over 4 seconds or so at one point. He's now closed that in quite nicely. The only people in a very, very close battle is Jelinek and Carney at the tail of the field. But this circuit, as we've seen, and we certainly saw Prachada around that very corner there, Redmond really kind of get it very wide. One mistake can throw you off into a whole world of pain, so he's by no means done. Checker flag is out, and as you can see, the line is there, so he wasn't far off beating the flag, in fairness, but we are now on the final lap of the sprint race here for VGP2.
Yep, exactly right. And as you said, he nearly made that another lap potentially, but nope, we're on the final lap now. So Raigel looking comfortable again, maintaining that gap down to Kovacic, very similar to what we've been seeing for the vast majority of the race. I'd say he built about just over a 1 second gap pretty early stages, maybe just pushing really hard. Decided to take a little bit of life out of those medium tires. And just built that little bit of a gap, and then slowly extending it, and possibly he's just managing it at this point. Who knows? It's difficult to get. The mind of a racing driver is a scary place to be. We don't want to go there too in depth. So, but yeah, it's possible he's just been maintaining that gap ever since getting it up to about 2. Because 2 seconds that's a nice gap. You can still see your rival, and you could possibly keep him, keep tabs on him and that sort of thing. But also, you're really not under any sort of threat from any sort of dive bombs or anything like that. Although I think Kujela did that dive bomb from almost 2 seconds back earlier in the race. It was pretty far back. It was maybe a full second, I think, at the time. But Raigel, just a few corners still to go, makes his way through Hobbs for the final time in this first race, down towards Mike Knight corner, which is not quite. It's a little bit bigger than 90 degrees. It's maybe 110 degrees or so. And then the last corner, just a little bit tighter by comparison. Gets it down to just over 100 kph, powers out of that final corner using a bit of that curbing, and it is going to be the victory for Pavel Raigel in the Acer car ahead of the Logitech car of Kovacic. You can see he is relieved, understandably too. I mean, that was a pretty much inch-perfect race. That's about as good as it gets, and certainly I would say a contender for driver of the day. As the last of the cars making their way to the line now, and that's going to do it for the first race.
Absolutely stunning effort from Mr. Raigel. I did wonder whether he was going to celebrate. Wow, Mr. Corey, that's exuberant celebrating.
Wow, what a result, though, for Pavel Rigel. Just over 2 seconds. Andy picks up the fastest lap as well on those medium tires with a 1:39.4. Again, ahead of Kovacic and Pachata, who complete that podium. Bušek picks up that 4th place position. Liška and Kužela just behind Prohaska, not that far either. And Vanešek, in the end, as Chris was saying, starting to close that gap up. And then a bit of a 6-second gap down to the rest of the guys. And we are ready to go racing once again. The lights are coming on, and they're preparing to go out here in Okayama for race 2 of VGP2 for round 8 at Okayama, and it looks like a good start. Kužela with the outside, but the leading line, and Bušek actually looking like he possibly wants to challenge Liška around the outside. The Benzina and Smarty cars are at it once again. They were pretty much inseparable during the first race, and it looks similar. So this will prove my point here, Chris. Around the outside for the Benzina car does look like it's actually the easier way to go. So that's really what you want, the outside line through turn 2, but we can see Pavel Rigel already trying to make up position side by side with the RPS car through that very high speed. Turn 3 just about edges ahead. Prohaska thinks about diving up the inside, but Rigel covers that off and takes that position already up to P6.
Well, that got rather lively for Mr. Rigel very early on. So, yeah, he's determined to make his way back up through the field. He wants to be back on the top spot. There is Liška again, trying to move on Kužela, and can't quite get it done. Remember, it was the top 6 finishers from the sprint race have their grid reversed for this race. Everybody else starts in the position they finish, still side by side as we come through. Down towards turn, oh my goodness, 3 wide as we come through the next left-hander, and everybody then filtering back out as we come into the next. Oh, what a move again by the Benzina car. Can he get it done this time? That's the thing. That's the thing that makes the alternate lines work. Is there's lots of short, sharp parts in this track that kind of open the way to creative driving. Rigel right in there as well. Wow, it's impossible to know where to look. The cameraman's struggling as well. Oh, that's getting very close in the RPS car and the sport car directly behind. Doesn't look like anyone's fallen off the road. The pack's still fairly close together as we complete the first lap in anger.
Yep, coming to the end now and starting the second lap. And oh gosh, here we go once again as the RPS car looking up the inside on Pachata, but actually couldn't make that happen. And it looks like, in fact, he might have Korny behind him trying to go on the attack as Prohaska didn't quite make that move work into turn 1. And through the high-speed turn 3, once again they go, getting onto that curbing. That's one of those places where you can be very aggressive. Oh, Hurtnecki actually going side by side in the background there. All of the cars are on the hards now for this race. So everybody going onto the hards for the longer race, of course. We've got 40 minutes, just under 40 minutes plus 1 lap of racing. So it's looking like the hard tires are the compound of choice for the entirety of the grid. And Kužela, you have to say, looking a bit more comfortable compared to this stage last lap that we were seeing, as the Logitech car of Kovacic felt the need to go defensive into that hairpin, possibly worrying about the race winner from the sprint race, Pavel Rigel, just behind him. And the Legion car, that's a very awkward line through Revolver there, and that's going to lose him a little bit of time, but it's a very, very short run down to turn 7 after turn 6, so you don't lose too much time by taking that kind of an awkward line. Kovacic, though, going on the attack now with Liška up ahead, side by side for the RPS car and the Spurt car. Prohaska and Korny side by side. Korny with the inside line as they make their way through turn 9. That is Hobson. It looks like with that inside line, he is going to come out ahead. It's about a 180-degree corner, just under, I would say, 180-degree corner, so very difficult to go around the outside there. And indeed, the Spurt car comes out on top as they come to the end of the lap. Are we going to see any side-by-side moments into turn 1? I'm going to say yes, Chris.
Well, we have done every lap so far, all 2 of them. So, no, everyone seems to be behaving this way. Oh, no, never mind. No, me of little faith. That was Vanešek, I believe it was. It was trying a move in the Legion car behind. Couldn't quite get that one done. A little bit of a gap forming for Kužela up front. He's about bordering on 2 seconds lead for him now. He's trying to do what Rigel did last time. Oh, and surprise, that's the Benzina car having a look once again. Liška on Bušek. That battle's going to go on for a while. Kovacic looming as well to get involved with it. Rigel is staying a little bit further behind. Now they will have to think about kind of tyre preservation and what have you, not doing too much damage too quickly. Whoa, Kovacic. Wow, if you can slow that down, and he does. Very nicely done. He wants the inside for the next apex, which he gets. That's exactly what Justin's been talking about. That's how you can make that long dive on the outside of the hairpin work so well for you, as the inside for Revolver comes up very, very quickly. Great move from the VGP2 Championship leader.
Unbelievable. That might be my overtake of the day so far. That was just, I mean, textbook maneuver around the outside, inside line for Revolver, as you said. Just beautiful, beautiful stuff. Rigel is going to be the next up to try and overtake the Benzina car as Kovacic tries to extend that gap down behind him and try and close in on the Smarty car up ahead of Bušek, and that is for second position already, if you can believe it. So he's looking very strong. He's got himself a car now between himself and the Acer car of Rigel. So he's got Liška as a bit of a buffer at the moment, and he's going to try and make good use of that if he possibly can. We can see Rigel really going for an alternate line there through turn one, just making a lunge for an early apex into the corner. Same line actually into turn two. Again, going for that early apex, and Korony here coming under attack from Prohaska. So that battle is certainly not done just yet. Prohaska has a word or two to get in there regarding that 7th place position as they make their way down into the hairpin, and it looks like Korony's going to take that inside line, going to hug that inside line actually. He's going to make Prohaska think about going to the outside. Korony still has the advantage though as they come up and over the hill and begin the descent down into turn 5. He's going to really defend that inside line. Not sure if I agree with that one. This could be a great opportunity for Prohaska to go around the outside at the hairpin. Is he going to be late enough on the brakes? I don't think so, actually. Korony going very late on the brakes, but he does the switchback. This will put him to the outside, though, for Revolver and Piper. But no, actually, Korony gets onto the throttle a little bit better out of that hairpin, and he maintains that position. But here comes Vanashek, and he's got Hurtnecki right behind as well. And Jelinek really isn't that far behind either, Chris.
The field's almost split completely in half. If you ignore Kujela, it is split in half, with 2nd to 6th in one pack and 7th to 11th in the next. So a great amount of battling still to resolve. Here we are looking at Liška again, the Benzina car, and actually Rigel's ahead of him. So somewhere along the line, the Acer car has made his way past the Benzina for 4th. Great effort there. Pachada then looking to follow suit. There we saw Kovacic and Bušek getting very, very close into that first turn. Not quite close enough. I would normally say not close enough to make a move, but we have seen how far back you can make a move stick if you commit to it early enough. So, and they do look to be closing in on Kujela as well. Bearing in mind that the reverse grid aspect hasn't kind of reverted back to what we saw. So there are still potentially drivers slightly out of position. Not that we saw a massive pace difference between our drivers anyway, but there's still, you know, Rigel obviously being our race winner last time around isn't back up into the lead. That's more what I'm aiming at from that statement. Prohaska gets a little bit deep coming into that right-hander at Atwood Curve. Now, is Korony in the sport car going to commit to that defensive line? No. Well, he is, but not as early as he did last time. Prohaska, no, doesn't fancy that outside line. And that just goes to show how much confidence you need to commit to that outside line. Because, yeah, last lap as well, Prohaska was very, very... I think he'd actually nosed ahead of Korony before hitting the braking zone, but just couldn't, didn't feel like he could hold the car around that outside line. We got Kovacic made it look so easy. It's anything but.
Oh yeah, extremely difficult. But yeah, that was great by Korony. The way he just slowly drifted over to the inside of the track, and it made it very difficult for Prohaska to go to the left-hand side at first and then to go to the right-hand side at the end. And by the time he made the decision to go over to the left-hand side, they were already into the braking zone. So that was really smart defensive driving there from Korony to sort of discourage any sort of an overtake from Prohaska. He didn't really have to defend the corner in the end, purely because he was intelligent about positioning his car as they got down into that turn 5 hairpin. So really impressive stuff there from Korony. Unfortunately for him, though, all of that defending is building a bit of a gap up to Pachada, who we're having a look at now. He's going on the attack on Liška once again. Speaking of attacks, Kovacic is possibly going to be looking up the inside here into Atwood Curve, into turn 4, and he's got that inside line. Of course, Bušek, though, with that... Oh, that is very aggressive from Bušek. Yeah, and a hand goes up from Kovacic, wondering about that. I got to say, I'm wondering a little bit about that, too. Really not leaving him the room, pushing him onto the inside of the circuit, but in the end, Bušek holds on to that position, and Kovacic doesn't look like he's going to be able to make that lunge up the inside, around the outside, or anything. nothing going for him. You can see him again just fighting that wheel through that very low-speed corner, the tightest corner on the circuit, even through such a low-speed corner as the Turn 5 hairpin, though. You can see how much they're having to fight the wheel as he closes right up to the back of that Smarty car, getting a great look at that Smarty livery. And is he going to think about the inside? He shows him his nose, but in the end, not able to pull alongside. So he stays behind in third position with just over 30 minutes still remaining. The Smarty car going very defensive, actually, into Hobbs. I'm surprised to see that one. Goes about a car length between the Smarty car and the Logitech car. But all of this is great news for Kužela up at the front.
Well, good news for Rigel as well, because Rigel is pretty close to Kovacic as well as a result of that small impact between the Logitech and Smarty cars. Did you see Kovacic's face? He is not happy. He was. Nope. He looked pretty angry after that impact, and I can understand it. He very much had the door shut whilst he was in it, so I can understand why he was not too impressed with that particular manoeuvre. And he closed back in on Bušek within 2 turns. So there's no doubting Kovacic's pace, but don't let the temper get the better of you. We've seen what happens when you overdrive. Well, we've seen what happens when you overdrive anything. If you push these things too hard, it does not like you for it, and it will spit you off into the dust. But, Necky, can he get the move done on Vanashek? Gonna have the inside line. Oh, never mind. And then Kovacic, he's made this outside line work for him before. Can Bušek defend the inside line coming into the hairpin? Oh, Bušek a bit braver on the brakes than previously, but Kovacic is going to have the inside line, and that is done again. Oh, no, it is not. Oh, surprise. That is not done. That was brilliantly defended from Bušek. Oh, me of little faith. I had written that one off, and I reckon Kovacic did as well. Because, again, you saw the face on him. He's probably quite surprised when Bušek came back, and that was an awesome move when Kovacic pulled it off, and that was an even better defense from the Smarty car. And if you ever want a show of never give up, there's a perfect example.
Yeah, the defending at Atwood, that was iffy. The defending at the hairpin and at Revolver, that was incredible. That was incredible. Really, really enjoyed that one from Bušek. He is clearly not just going to let Kovacic through. Let's see if he's going to defend the inside line into turn 1. He'll get the inside line for turn 2. Oh, nope, they're actually not side by side. Kovacic not quite able to get his door alongside the Smarty car. And as Chris mentioned earlier, Rigel really not that far behind. Lishka as well, I have to say, is not that far behind with Pichata in hot pursuit as well. Again, the largest gap at the moment, other than the leader, Kužela, is Korny behind Pichata. So, yeah, it really seems second to sixth, as Chris mentioned before. That really seems to be heating up here as these guys get closer and closer. Bušek, though, doing a fantastic job of making this Mercedes-Benz 190E about twice as wide as it would normally be. Will we see him do the Korny, as I'm calling it now, and slowly drift over to the right-hand side? Yes, we do. Well, sort of. He does pick the inside line for this corner. Again, it's going to be the outside line for Kovacic through the right-hander. Is he going to be able to pull alongside into the Revolver corner? He does once again, but once again, the Smarty car. Oh, contact between the two of them. A bit of a slide for the Smarty car, and Pavel Rigel says thank you very much and takes the pair of them. I know Kovacic was upset, but he probably couldn't put his hand up because he was still mid-corner. So if that had happened on the straight, I think we would have seen some more gesticulations from the Logitech driver. But oh, is he going to get him this time? He's trying to round the outside now on the Smarty car. The Benzina car is really closed up, as has Pichata as well. So as a result of this battling, this contact between the two of them, this has actually just made the field even tighter. This has all worked out very well for Rigel, though. You can see he's already building a pretty sizable gap down to this quartet, who are now battling for third position. So this is for the final podium position, and less than 30 minutes plus 1 lap still to go in this race. And it's been fantastic so far. I can only imagine how desperate these guys are going to get in 25 minutes time.
Yeah, absolutely. But if Rigel was a bumper length, or a bumper width rather, closer, he'd have been in that accident. That was so close, but very well reacted. You know, Rigel kept his cool and reacted with enough steering correction, not to throw it off into the dust, but just to make the necessary correction. As again, the Logitech car has a look on the inside of the Smarty car. This time, Kovacic getting a great drive. Here we go again. Here is the incident. It does. I wondered whether, who turned into who. I think looking at that Kovacic actually caught that inside apex a little bit too hard, and that just, you know, caused him to lose that just enough traction on the front end just to understeer into Bušek. And Bušek had, you know, nowhere to go. He was defending the inside line. Maybe a bit 50-50. Maybe Bušek did turn in a little bit more than he was, more than there was room allowed. Either way, I can't see that being anything other than a race against it. Wow, that was Prohaska in the background getting very sideways again. Oh! Whoa! My goodness, that's determination from Kovacic, and then shut the door on the inside of Hobbs. Very nicely done, and there's the Benzina car. Liška looking to follow. Saying, oh, the grass for both the Smarty and the Benzina cars. Oh, side by side, here comes Brachana now to capitalise on that impact. It's Liška that's under pressure. My goodness me, and now you've got Korny and Prohaska really getting involved. The sport car is getting a drive on Brachana. Oh, for what turned in from what was initially an attacking move is now a defence. He's lost the position. Can Korny slow it down before he hits Liška? Yes, he can. Side by side through the first turn. Can he get the inside for the next left-hand? Answer is yes. Korny having a much stronger round this time than he did in the sprint race, and that is up to 6th for Korny.
Unbelievable. Really, really enjoyable racing we're seeing here today at Okayama with these 190E DTM cars, as Korny again goes a bit wide through that hairpin, but you can see he gets on the throttle nice and early, and you can see as they power out of the corner, he really hasn't lost any time. He does have the Thrustmaster car alongside him, though. Yep, they are door to door as they make their way down into that hairpin. Again, the outside line, though, might be preferable to Korny, which is maybe why he didn't bother defending that. But he also maybe just couldn't get over there in time, so he does defend the outside line, which will become the inside line for Revolver. He's gotten a better exit coming out of the corner, and he does just about edge ahead of the Thrustmaster car, maintains that 6th place position, runs a little bit wide there, though. Pachata thinking about sneaking his nose up the inside into Piper. That would have been a very daring maneuver and possibly would have resulted in some contact, as we see the RPS car going a little bit offline. The Korny defending the inside line into Redmond, and he's going to defend the inside line once again into Hobbs as well. He should come out pretty cleanly ahead out of that corner. He does indeed, so he's not going to have to worry about the Thrustmaster car for a few corners now. He can relax a little bit, try and close that gap up to the Benzina car of Liška up ahead. 25 minutes plus 1 lap still to go. He misses his apex, does Korny, through that final corner, runs a little bit wide onto the gravel, I think, even a little bit, dipping those tires off the circuit right at the final corner at the exit. Are we going to see Pachata try anything up the inside? A very late apex, it looks like, for Korny. Just finding the apex, actually, as the curbing is running out at the inside of the corner. It moves over to the right-hand side. Oh, the back end trying to step out. Of course, a very lightweight vehicle is this 190E. We've discussed it before. Extremely, extremely lightweight. So sometimes it can be very difficult trying to find that traction. And in case you forgot, there's Kujela, there's Rigel. They now have the most comfortable sort of races going on at the moment with the least to worry about. But in case you forgot that, Forza car still leading the way. Still has an over 3-second gap down to the Acer car of Rigel. Kovacic is now in 3rd position. And Kovacic is once again chasing after that Acer car. So the Acer car is not leading the race, but we are seeing that very familiar sight of the Logitech car chasing after the Acer car.
And straight back then for the battle for 6th position between Korny and Pachata, with Liška not too far up the road. Also bear in mind, Prohaska is directly behind this battle as well, so this hasn't abated whatsoever. Again, you can see the driver views on the bottom of the screen. Look at how they have to wrestle the car. It might look balanced from the off-board shot, but again, look at that. How much soaring's going on. The tail got very light on Pachata's car there. What? And even more light there for Korny. But you just see how much Pachata's having to fight to keep the thing, even in his comparatively settled state. Ooh, that may be a little bit deep for Korny. Nothing too bad. It's a fairly medium speed corner, as Justin's previously mentioned, so he's not going to lose too much time from going a tad wide there. Pachata is maintaining that pressure on Korny, and again, still Liška in the short distance away. So lots for them to be aiming for. There is the Acer car again. The gap between Rigel and Kujela has not changed a great deal. Rigel's going to have to be more careful behind than forwards fairly soon if we can't close that gap down to Kujela, as Kovacic is likely to be reading in that particular gap. Looking at the laps last time around, Rigel did gain about 4/10 potentially on Kujela. Pachata he's had a decent drive out of Atwood, but so has Carney. And there goes Carney defending that inside line very, very early, forcing Pajada to go the long way around. We've seen how well that can work for drivers. Oh, that's so close. Can barely get a card or anything between those two cars at that particular point. And well defended again for Carney. But here, there's Prohaska waiting for it all to go wrong and maintaining. Oh, Prohaska possibly a little bit deep there into Piper, but nothing that's going to throw him off the road. Still, the pressure being maintained, and Prachada's actually fallen a bit off the back of Carney into the grasp of Prohaska. So that dynamic of that particular battle could well change in the next few turns.
I have to say, Corney looks like he is on the limit at all times, and actually often beyond the limit is Corney, as we've seen from that sprint car. I mean, even just look at him up ahead. You can see through that final corner, it looks like the back end is just trying so hard. You can actually see a little bit of angle to the car where the back end is trying to step out. It's not quite stepping out, but you can just see the car kind of flexing through the corner, kind of changing its angle, and right on the limit of losing that tire adhesion. He is just really wringing everything out of that car. And honestly, I don't know if that's fastest, because he does lose traction. He does run off the circuit, as we just saw. There are these brief moments, and I think that maybe is what's kind of like holding him back in this race, because he's just going beyond the limit a little too often. Again, through this hairpin, the Thrustmaster car with that tighter line, Pachada is going to get a good run coming out of that hairpin. Is it going to be good enough? It's going to be a carbon copy of what we saw on the previous lap, I think. It's just about a car's length between the two of them, but he picks up the slipstream, does Pachada. He's going to move for the inside line, but as soon as he moves for the inside line, Corney defends it, forces him to the outside, but oh no! A carbon copy move to what we saw for Corney in the first race. He's off the circuit, he's into the gravel, he loses the position, but he's only going to lose that one position, incredibly, to David Pachada, so he does manage to hold on for, he lost to Prohaska as well too, so he loses 2 positions in that incident by going off of the circuit. But the exact same problem that we saw from him in the first race, it's happened again in the second race, and unfortunately it's going to lose him a couple of positions as a result. He is still in this race though. He can definitely still get those positions back. There's only about a second or two between himself and those 2 cars, so he's not out of it just yet. There's still more than 20 minutes of racing still to go here at Okayama, but wow, another mistake. Really the only sort of 2 mistakes that we've seen. You pointed this out in the short race earlier, Chris, that Corney's incident off the circuit was really the only major thing that we saw, other than those 2 cars coming together through a revolver. But even that didn't result in any sort of off-track incidents or anything. So Corney really seems to be struggling, but at the same time, he seems to have a lot of pace, which is making things very exciting when it comes to watching him.
You're not wrong there, absolutely. You pointed out that Corney was right on the limit. I thought he'd actually broken at the right time coming into the hairpin there, but his brakes didn't seem to want to yield as much stopping power as his car needed. But I tell you who is on the move. Kovacic set in the fastest lap, and that gap between himself and Rigel has been slowly coming down. Lap on lap, few tenths here and there. Rigel gained 6 tenths on Kujela last time around. He doesn't seem to be able to consistently take that much gap out of the leader. But at this rate, Kovacic is gaining on Rigel quicker than Rigel's gaining on Kujela. But we are going to have a mighty scrap for that top spot well before the checker flag falls, I would say. But we've seen how easy it is to make a mistake. I mean, a couple of drivers have made a mistake without being under pressure, let alone when you've got a potential win on the cards. So Kujela and Rigel will be feeling the pressure there. Rigel will definitely be feeling the pressure from the Logitech car directly behind him. Prohaska maintaining that gap between himself and Pachada. That's thrown Corney a good 3 seconds behind Prohaska now. Hopefully Corney won't kind of just give up on it. It's very easy to do when you make a mistake like that. Part of you can just kind of reside, oh well, that's it, job done. I really hope he doesn't. I really hope he continues to push. Maybe just a couple of percent off of 110%. Just back it off a little bit. Keep a little bit more traction on the road. That I really do hope that he's able to kind of gather his thoughts back up again and really push on to close that gap down. He's certainly capable of doing it. We've seen some great stuff from Corney today.
Oh yeah, yeah. As I said, just been really, really exciting stuff. I mean, it's been exciting up and down the field, and as you pointed out, I think these three, the top three, Kujela, Reigl, and Kovacic, these are going to be tightening up, and yeah, these gaps have really been coming down. Actually, the gap between Kujela and Reigl came down significantly just in the last lap or so. In fact, we're on board with Reigl. You can see just how much closer he is to that Forza car up ahead of Kujela. It is down to just over a second, round about a second, or maybe just a couple of tenths higher, but really not much between the two of them. So right as we were saying that Kovacic was catching Reigl very quickly, Reigl seems to have either really turned up the wick, or possibly Kujela just having a bit of a mistake. We may have possibly missed a mistake. I know it's difficult to fathom, but we do miss things from time to time, and we might have missed something from Kujela there, and that might have put Reigl much closer. You can see it's actually within 1 second as they make their way through this final sector. Less than 17 minutes plus 1 lap still remaining in this race. And Chris was exactly right when he said we're absolutely going to see a battle between these three before this race is finished. At the rate these guys are closing up one another, it's seeming more and more likely. You can see the Smarty car just coming into the shot there with the Benzina car just kind of with a little bit of a slide going on. And actually, he was like straightened out for the corner before the corner was finished. So you can see just a bit of an angle coming on for that Benzina car, but again, pushing very, very hard. And yeah, so it's a handful of seconds between the top three and Bušek, for example, but I mean, we've seen mistakes already, as Chris pointed out, and we could see more mistakes. Once these guys start battling as well, this is something that we have seen for sure. Once these guys start battling, that is going to bring cars that are further behind into the equation as they slow each other down, because really these top three have sort of just been pushing to their heart's content, not really having to do any side-by-side battling or anything like that. So the lap times will start to increase. The cars will start to get slower and slower as they start battling with one another. And you know that handful of seconds between Kovacic and Bušek could easily come down to a much smaller amount than that. So I'm not, you know, it looks like these three have sort of broken away at the moment, but the impending battle between the three of them could easily bring more drivers into the equation.
Kujela's lost 2 seconds to Reigl in the last, over 2 seconds to Reigl in the last 3 laps alone. So Kujela may well be struggling now, or he's been trying to perhaps save a bit of life in his tyres for this inevitable battle. It very much is on. You know, Reigl is 7 tenths between himself and Kujela. Kovacic has exactly the same gap between himself and this bright green Acer car. Let's see what the lap times are as they cross over the line again. Kujela 40.9 for the last couple of laps, as a 40.7 this time. Reigl 40.4, so it's come down a little, not as much as in previous laps, but now is going to be when Reigel's going to start thinking about, where am I going to make the move on you? He's had enough time sat behind the Forza car to think, okay, this is the line you've been taking, and that's how I'm going to do it. But of course, he can't ignore the fact that Logitech car is right in his mirrors, where it's been for the last 2 races now. And oh wow, look how much the Pavel Reigl closed into Kujela coming through the outward curve. Surely now Kujela's going to feel the pressure, although Kujela's had a cracking drive out of the corner. That seems to be where his strength is lying. And if he can do that, it's exiting turn 4, if he's able just to have enough pace. Oh, Reigl got a little bit fidgety coming into the hairpin. And the Kovacic just like, come on, fall off the road, do something. I want you out of the way. So, yeah, Reigel's going to have to plan for the move, because Kujela certainly has enough pace. But, Kujela's just got to keep his cool. Far easier for me to say in the commentary box than it is for Kujela right now.
Yeah, this is a beautiful shot, actually, seeing these 3 cars. Yeah. I have to say, the pink and black with the lime green and the bright blue with the black. I mean, these are 3 beautiful-looking cars. I have to say as well, we went on board on the run down towards turn 5 with the Acer car of Pavel Reigl. And this car sounds fantastic from the onboard, right at the top of the rev range. I mean, it is really singing, this DTM car, and it's great to see the flames shooting out of the back as they get onto the brakes and do their downshifts for the heavy braking zones. And there you can see those flames shooting out of the back of the Acer as Kovacic closes right up to the back of Pavel Reigl into turn 1 there. We're really getting to the closing stages of this race now. Just about anywhere from 13 to 15 minutes still to go in this race. So really not much to go, and these guys are going to get more and more desperate, which is something that I mentioned earlier on. and there it is. It looks like Rigel has had enough of sitting behind Kujela. He's got that inside line, but Kovacic in the Logitech car, he's unchallenged. He didn't go side by side, so he was able to take the racing line through that hairpin. That's given him a great exit. Coming out of that corner, it's going to put him alongside Kujela, and he's picking up the slipstream here off of the Acer car. Surely they're not going to make it 3 wide into the hairpin. No, they are not. Kujela with the outside line, though, couldn't quite make it around the outside of the Acer car. The Logitech car coming back at him. They're going to be side by side. A bit of contact, though, between the two of them, and Kovacic knows that game, getting contact going into Revolver. He's very used to that. Oh, Kujela heavy onto the brakes through Piper there, so fantastic bit of racing. A better exit, though, for Kovacic coming out of those double left-handers. Could see him dive up the inside on the Forza car, and it looks like he's just about done it. Can he move over to the right-hand side of the circuit and block that line on Kujela? No, not quite. He's going to have to leave the space for the Forza car, but at the exit of the corner gets the job done, and that is Kujela down from first to third in just 1 lap. But that is, I mean, to try and keep these kinds of drivers behind, that's a tall order. I mean, these are some of the best of the best, and they are performing very, very well here today at Okayama in these DTM cars. So you have to feel for Kujela. He did a great job, but in the end, his efforts were not quite enough to keep this pair behind.
Yeah, indeed. Rigel pounced on Kujela exactly where I thought he would. That entrance to the Atwood curve, turn 4, it was where Kujela was slow last lap around, and Rigel clocked that one. Yep, that's going to be my point. He committed to the move very, very early, enough time for Kujela to realise he was there, and Kovacic then nailed him coming into Redmire at turn 8 as well. So, what can Kovacic do against Rigel now? That's going to be the battle ahead of him, as Kujela will do his best to stay in the tyre tracks of the Logitech car. But look at the gap that already Kovacic has built up. Kujela has been struggling in this latter half of the race to maintain the pace that these two have. And I think Kujela realistically will have to accept that's not necessarily the battle he's in. As a stunning job as he's done to build that gap up front, the fact that the gap has gone tells you the pace difference that is there. It's not huge, but it's enough lap on lap on lap on lap for that gap to disappear, and of course for Rigel to resume the lead of this race. So Kujela will, I'm sure, have loved to have remained up top, but realistically have to accept the fact that the two ahead of him are there on pace. Kujela's done nothing wrong. He made some decent events. He did that lovely side-by-side with Kovacic, so he's clearly got the skills, just not quite the pace to hang on to the top two at the moment. But, if Kovacic breaks on the grass, if Rigel misses a braking point, if one of them spins, if a meteor lands in the middle of the road, then who knows? Kujela, he's still in a prime position to pick up on any mistakes from the top two. Oh yeah, without question. And of course, if they start really, really battling, and I'm not talking just a single overtake at one corner, but, multi-corner, side-by-side, door-to-door sort of battling, if that starts happening, then, yeah, absolutely, Kujela could just sneak right back up and get back up into second position, into first position, who knows? But, yeah, he's not worried too much about Bushek and the Smarty car behind. He's a handful of seconds still behind at the moment. Yeah, it's looking good for him to score a podium here. Which would be a fantastic result for him and the Forza team. I'm sure they would be absolutely thrilled about that. Less than 10 minutes remaining in this race. So, yeah, I mean, Bushek's going to have to be about, half a second a lap quicker or more even than that in order to close up to Kujela and make the overtake. So, now, one thing that really interests me here, Chris, because I'm definitely getting big deja vu vibes here with Rigel leading the race and Kovacic just, a second or two behind. However, the big difference here, I think, between the first race and the second race is the fact that there is no difference in tires now. So what we saw in the first race was Rigel on mediums, Kovacic on hards, and it seemed it wasn't really until right at the end of the race when those hards started to come good. However, we do see them now, of course, on the same tire compound, the same tire life as well. So it's entirely possible that Kovacic might have the advantage here. Now, he hasn't flown right up to the back of Rigel, so when we speak of advantages, of course, in this kind of caliber of racing, we're talking about a tenth or two per lap, maybe, possibly even less than that. But it seemed like Kovacic was keeping up with Rigel in the previous race on a harder set of tires, and now that they're on the same compound,
there could be a pace difference between the two of them. So that's certainly something we're going to keep an eye on. We're also, of course, keeping an eye on Puchata and Lishka for 5th position. This is the leading pair of the sort of second group of cars behind the third place, the third place cars. So yeah, that's the difference we're sort of seeing at the moment. Those are the things that we're keeping an eye on. And down into the hairpin, it looks like Kovacic not quite able to make anything happen. So as much as I hope Kovacic has that slight pace advantage in order to put him alongside the Acer car, at the moment, all the evidence is pointing towards Rigel just having the outright pace.
Well, possibly, but like you say, I think you've touched on a good point there, where Kovacic has got the experience on these harder tyres.
That's very true.
This race alone, yeah, he will know how hard he can realistically push, unless Rigel's practiced on the hard tyre, because these guys will have practiced and practiced and practiced. You would think, anyway, unless Rigel's suddenly become a god and he's just turned up on the day. That would be pretty amazing. But look at the last lap from both. As you can see at the bottom of the screen, 139.9 from Kovacic. We haven't really seen any 39s on the board. A 40.3 from Rigel. The lap before, they were separate. They were both 40.2. They were 13 thousandths of a second apart. So that just goes to show. And there, 2 tenths in Kovacic's favour. Now, there's only half a second between the two of them now. So Kovacic is really going to have to start hustling Rigel. Now, he won't have the kind of pace of, well, I say won't have. He had 4 tenths on him last time around. 2 laps ago now. So potentially Kovacic has enough of a pace difference to make the kind of move on Rigel that Rigel pulled on Kujela. Bearing in mind that Kujela's 3 seconds back now, so he's not able to hang into the tyre tracks of the Logitech car. But I think Kovacic is going to have to work much more, going to have to work much harder at this. He may well have the inherent knowledge of or more knowledge of the harder tyres than Rigel possibly, but Rigel's been pushing very hard on them all race long. And it's taken till now for Kovacic to be in a really, really strong position without anybody else around. That's another key factor as well. They're not attacking anybody else. They're not in a pack of 6. They're not defending against anybody else. And that's going to be the difference with Kovacic. He's going to have to either pressure the mistake or just have the biggest lunge in the world. Because I bet you any amount of money, Rigel is going to shut every possible door he can. He knows how quick Kovacic is. How many times have they raced together in this season alone? He knows full well where he's potentially weaker and potentially stronger than Kovacic. He's been sat behind him, for all of last race and this one. So Kovacic knows what he has to deal with Rigel and vice versa. It is going to be quite an effort from Kovacic. With 5 minutes remaining, it's going to be quite an effort for the Logitech car to overhaul the Acer car. Can he do it? Certainly can, but it's going to be how, it's going to be where, it's going to be quite momentous when it happens, I suspect. Yeah,
looking forward to that one. But we can, as mentioned before, though, we can also look forward to this battle. Thrustmaster v Benzina for 5th position. That is still going on. David Puchata still has not been able to find a way past the Benzina car. And honestly, the Smarty car of Bushek isn't exactly breaking away from this duo either. And Prohaska is lurking not that far in the wings. We might even see the RPS car just make it into the shot. Just heard him make it through the shot actually there. We didn't see him, but we sure did hear him. And it looks like we might not have to wait too long here for Kovacic v Rigel. Will the Acer car defend the inside line into the hairpin? Oh, he brakes very early. Either that or Kovacic is braking very, very late. The Acer car does manage to take the racing line through there and comes out ahead, but it clearly Kovacic is keen to make an overtake here, and that was just sort of like the statement of intent from the Logitech driver, just letting him know. But as Chris said, he's like a Terminator sent from the future. He's just analyzing weaknesses right now. Oh, I see a mistake there on that corner, a mistake there. I've seen you make a mistake at this corner 2 laps in a row now. And, as he accumulates all of that data, he is going to eventually make an educated, informed decision about where to make that overtake. But oh man, you can see the desperation is really setting in. For the 3rd time, I'm going to mention it because, of course, as the race goes on and gets closer and closer to that checkered flag coming out, which I think is going to be, we're just coming up to the line now. So I think 3 laps, including this one that we're just starting. So really not much time still to go for the Logitech driver of Kovacic. If he wants to make it happen, he's going to have to make it happen pretty soon here. He can count the number of overtake opportunities that he has left on 1 or 2 hands. in this race. It's absolutely flown by. Really exciting stuff we've been seeing from the VGP2 guys, as we saw last time in the GT3 in Macau as well. Oh, lovely shot. Oh yes, I will applaud Lishka just for that bit of a slide on. That's what I like to see. That's good stuff. But unfortunately, that's put Pachada right up to the back of him. He's going to make a lunge. Oh, he switches to the inside. Does the Thrustmaster driver? Can he get the power out of the corner? They are going to be side by side at the exit, and then it's a very long run down towards this corner where we see the Acer car and Logitech car going side by side once again. I think that was just about fair from Rigel. A little bit of a tap between the two of them, but I think that was just about fair. Here's the Thrustmaster versus Benzina car. Now we're seeing all sorts of action at this turn 5 hairpin. Very aggressive onto the curbs goes the Benzina car, but Pachada actually does hang it around the outside. He's going to try and get the inside line for the two left-handers. Doesn't quite make it. The Benzina car gives him room, though. Fair play to Lishka there, because he's being very respectful of his competitor in the Thrustmaster car behind, and this is really kicking off now here, Chris.
What a surprise in the dying moments of the race. These guys come alive. Not that we've had any kind of lull, as we never do with these drivers, especially in these cars. The poor camera director doesn't know where to look. Do we look at the lead or do we look at Pachada and Lishka? But right now, it is a battle for the lead on what is going to be the penultimate lap. Or the beginning of the penultimate lap, I should say. Kovac is once again, it's laying in wait. That turn 5, that hairpin is where Kovac has been strongest. How many times has he done or tried that outside maneuver? That, I think, is going to be his best opportunity to try and get past that ever bright green Acer car. And again, he's gone very deep. He's quite a way off the apex. He wants to try and get a decent exit from here. Maybe it was an intentional wide from there, but look at that. Even in the slipstream, there's no difference in pace between the two. So here we go again. This time Kovac just looks to the inside. No, has that door closed to him. Again, Rigel very much earlier on the brakes. Kovac wants to commit to that outside line, but Rigel, being earlier on the brakes, maybe he's braking earlier but not as hard, so it's carrying him with slightly more momentum into the apex. No idea. We don't know what tactics they're doing. It's just providing an awesome race for us to scream about. Here we go again into Redmond, turn number 8. And again, Kovac gets later on the brakes, but just cannot use that extra momentum he has. One more lap. The checker flag will fall before they get to the line. One more lap to go, and surely now Kovac has just got to think, I'm just going to have to throw it with as much force as I dare. Well, I'm sure he's had that thought more than once already. And Pachada is going to be thinking about the same thing, because he's been behind Lishka for quite a while. They were reading in Bouchek for a bit, but that gap seems to have increased a bit. That's the last thing I think on Pachada's mind. And you just look at Pachada, he has been fighting that car all race, this and the sprint race, so he'll probably be quite happy to hand it back, because he's really fought with it today.
Yeah, we can actually see David Pachada at the bottom right wiping the sweat from his brow. So that's the kind of race that he's been having. So clearly he's putting the sweat in. He's burning off some calories on that one, because, yeah, it's been a hard day. But
his hair doesn't move. You notice his hair is still perfect.
But yeah, doing a fantastic job. Here we go for the final time into the hairpin. Acer v Logitech, Rigel v Kovac. And actually, it looks to me like Kovac is going to be a bit too far back. The Acer doesn't even defend the inside line until already in the braking zone. And it is going to be line astern for the pair of them as they make their way through that hairpin into the revolver for the final time. And that's really it for overtaking locations. He can try something maybe into Redmond here. This is Kovacic's last opportunity, I would say. Oh, it's all kicking off, though, between Pachada and Lishka. Pachada getting heavy onto the curbing on the inside line, and the Benzina car does sneak ahead ever so slightly. Logitech and Acer still going at it, not able to make it happen into turn 8 at Redmond. Kovacic staying behind. They are going to be nose to tail as they cross the line, I think, into the penultimate corner now for the two race leaders, and it looks like Pavel Rigel is going to pick up a second win in Okayama. It's been an absolutely incredible drive for both of these guys out there today. Really got to hand it to them, and in fact, I think Kovacic is nearly going to be alongside as they make their way across the finish line, and there is the confirmation, and you you can see Rigel taking off that headset. He is exhausted. As you can see, Pachata letting go of the wheel. That's some impressive stuff right there. He actually let go of the wheel, let the car counter steer itself through the corner. Nice, really impressive. Korony comes home in 8th position. But holy cow, and in the end, Kovacic got the fastest lap.
He did, and only a tenth and a bit separated them. Kujeleth rounds out the podium. A great effort for him. Let's not forget that that was still a very strong performance of him. Bushek 4, Liska 5, Pachata 6, Prohaska 7, Korony 8, Vanashek 9, and Hurtnecki rounding out the top 10 of the feature race. This is how the standings now look. Kovacic still with a lead. It's been slightly dented. It's still nothing to immediately worry about, but Pavel Rigel firmly establishing himself in second, but still a great scrap third, down to really 7th in Korony. Absolutely brilliant stuff to come.
Yeah, really enjoyed that. In the team standings, it is now a 32-point gap for Acer after back-to-back wins in that one. Of course, we do still have the VGP1 races to run here at Okayama, so things might change. But Logitech in second position with 140 points, 17 points ahead of Benzina, another 20 points down to RPS. That is going to do it for the VGP2 drivers. Thank you so much for joining myself and Chris Buxton. Make sure you tune in next time when it's the turn of the VGP1 drivers for round 8. Thanks, we'll see you then.